and they're pretty much in a way writing it on a piece of paper of what are the counts. So we actually connected our sort of AI solution to be able to be communicated via WhatsApp. Now that you have that data, you can ask the AI questions about your data.
Hello everyone, today I'm here with Alex. He's the CTO and co-founder of Codelevate, and he is going to tell us a bit more about a recent case study about the client, but also about all the challenges that you went through that you want to reflect on. So tell us a bit more about the client. I know that you cannot share big details, but just tell us what the client does and what the industry it's
Exactly.
in.
So we are talking about the logistics sector, and the client, obviously, logistics is a quite a big sector, but within that perspective, the client is working with daily volume of the products that he's moving, and the products are shifting both from price on a daily perspective, but also on demand based on seasonality, etc. So every day you will have different type of volumes that you're building, but also every day you have to make decisions of how much volume you need to get. And because it's perishable goods, you have to be very careful of how much you have in storage, and also how much you have of each type of the products that you're selling. So it's a very dynamic, very sort of demand driven, and you have to be constantly analyzing and seeing your data. And within that industry, what we found out was that and with that sector within that industry, we found out that a lot of people were keeping most of the tracking in their head, or with using some really clunky softwares that they didn't have on demand in their pockets.
All right. So you're talking about a business that needs to be smart when it comes to not having too much of a good, but to have enough to support their
Exactly. And
clients.
very data driven on making decisions. And
Yeah.
most of the people were just keeping things in their head just from experience perspective.
Tell us a bit about the beginning of the process. So you met with the client, they shared the problem with you, you analyzed it, and you usually use a workshop that you sit down with the client and you go through the whole problem and try to define each and pinpoint each small detail of their problem.
Exactly.
How did that process go?
So indeed, we have a workshop. Usually, these workshops are from a half a day to a full day that we have to go through, depending on the complexity. And in the end, the person who comes to us, they're the experts within that topic. And what we're trying to figure out is, based on their expertise, how can we translate that into some solutions within the digital or technical solution. So the way that the workshop is really going is that in the beginning, the client is really mapping out as to much detailed, and with our help of questions, the whole flow. We're not thinking about how we're going to do it. We're trying to answer the questions of what and why, right? And all of that is taking actually a lot of time that you have to do it. And from that whole information, we're starting to map the individual sectors and process within that workflow. And within that case that we're talking about, it was pretty much working within the physical world and trying to translate that data from the physical world to a digital representation. So we recently went through the process of how the goods are coming, what's happening when the goods are coming, what the people are doing physically within these goods, what needs to happen. In a way, it's also like the client educating us of that business and that process. And within that discussion, we are already starting to see some of the answering of how we're going to do this. Because, of course, from a client's perspective, they're actually more focused on the how, because they already know the what and why. And we're the opposite. We know how to do it, and we are interested in the what and why. And the how is driven also by what stage we are right now. Is it a completely new startup? In this case, it was a completely new product. So we have to be mindful of, okay, how effective we are with the investment that we're doing, both financially, but from a time perspective. And we're starting to prioritize what are the most critical parts because also founders within it, and also with this case, they have so many ideas and opportunities of the what and why that we have to sort of tone it down,
Yeah.
because it will just become crazy from an integration perspective.
They're usually focusing on already on the how before they actually really are sure
Exactly.
what lies. So it's like I can define like building a house. You first build the floor, the
The
walls, and the
foundations.
foundations, and then you start with the rooftop. That's actually the how in this situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely right.
Talking about the PRD planning, this is the interesting part where you start connecting the dots
Exactly.
and try to look for what the possible solutions are for the client.
Yeah.
So how did that phase go? What did you how did you start? What was your initial starting point that you got to the actual solution offer?
Yeah. So based on that workshop, so we are having all of the information to create that project requirement documents, and in a way we are, and now with AI as well, we are shifting more to this specification driven development. And I want to touch a point about that, is because now we have, of course, the coding, but you have the copilot next to you, and we all know with LLMs and AI they love text. So previously, where code was the source of truth, now actually the specifications become the source of truth. And if you change a specification, now it's way much easier to translate that into code. So in a way, documentation even becomes more important. So from that part, we created the PRD, which in this case really describes the feature that we're going to build, what we need as infrastructure in order to support that, because translating something from the physical world to the digital is also, you have to have the right tools. So the infrastructure, the tools, the features, very detailed explanation of the features, because once you have that written down, you share that to the client and you can achieve two things. First of all, you validate, are we looking at the same vision of how
Yeah.
we want to do this?
Yeah.
Because again, they know the best of what and why, and we are sort of confirming that and writing it in a with the how. And then the second thing is you can create a very specific scope of work, which answers a lot of about, okay, what will be the financial investment, how much time it will take. And once we have these questions aligned, we are ready to move to the next phase, which is actually the designing of the product, right? And designing in this case for this specific client was not really actually building user interfaces, but it was all mapping all the tools and technologies, because it was sort of a AI driven product, of how will be the steps of getting the information from the physical world and through AI, and we'll go into details of how it works, but through the AI of how we add that to the digital sort of environment.
So going into the design phase, you use tools to create your solution. What tools did you use in that sense?
Yeah, so in a way, the way that it had to work with the mapping of the process is that the goods are coming in, they're loaded into these big carts. And what a person usually does now in their head is that they're doing a count of it very quickly. And they're pretty much in a way writing it on a piece of paper of what are the counts. And but they're also visually inspecting the quality of that. And the quality changes from day to day.
Yeah.
And they have to visually try to map of what type of qualities they have in their storage in order to know how to move the goods eventually to sell it on the next phase. So what we did was, first we had to overcome the challenge that it's a moving environment. You don't
Yeah.
have access to a computer
Yeah.
all the time. So the way that we overcame that is that everyone has their phones in their pockets and everyone has WhatsApp installed.
Yeah.
So we actually connected our sort of AI solution to be able to be communicated via WhatsApp. And WhatsApp gave you a lot of other benefits. First, you can do voice memos. You can do also images, which is great. And obviously, you can text with it.
So you
So
can use all of them.
from the start.
From the start.
Indeed. So
Okay.
you don't have to develop them. So that was one of the decisions that we made in that workshop, was that, okay, we're not going to focus on building this UI because we're sort of more testing now the AI solution and how
Yeah,
that will benefit.
exactly.
So the way that it worked is that the goods are coming in, the person was taking an image of it. Still, the AI could not count it. That was just too difficult for it. But we have the image, and then the user was doing a voice memo of the quality inspection that he or she was doing. And that all of information was taken, transcribed into text. And actually, within the voice memo, not only the quality, but they were saying how was the count. Like, okay, I have
Right.
50 of these goods. And that we can extract that information then from the text, or we were extracting that information from the text, and we were producing the data that's needed for their system to use it, their storage of data, their ERP, enterprise resource planning tool. And um, then we were sort of closing this cycle of now suddenly from papers and just people keeping information in their head, we have something digitalized as data, where we were starting to build on top of that tools and solutions to analyze the information of, you have 50 quantities of a specific good that is quality A3, which is sort
Yeah.
of lower quality. You're starting to have system of records of when was that good inside of it. So just from a small piece of voice memo, we're starting to add a lot of additional metadata in a way, in order to add even more abilities for analytics, which eventually was helping the owners of these organizations and the analysts to have a better predictability of what should I sell, what should I push more to sell now, what should I sell later as well. So in the end, that was the end-to-end solution.
And I suppose it makes it easier for people that are purchasing online, for example, to also have an overview of that and to update the database
Exactly.
very quickly.
Exactly. So in a way, we sort of we remove the need for you to go on the
Yeah.
computer and fill in the information with just one voice memo. You can, and then on that point, what opened up, and that was something that we also found in the workshop when we went to the details, is now that you have that data, you can ask the AI questions about your data. So it's
Yeah.
just, now I can ask, okay, tell me from supplier X, what is the average quality that we're receiving, right?
Yeah.
And that user who is sort of was loading the cart and doing this in their head, now they can see from this supplier that is coming, and they say, okay, what's the quality that I'm usually receiving? And it may say A1, which was a very good grade, but now it's A3 that has come. So he can make that voice memo, and that immediately can trigger the process further down the line of connecting that supplier, asking why, and sort of making more demands on that perspective.
Yeah. And for example, if they need like trends or statistics,
Yeah,
everything, this is already in the database,
exactly.
and that's connected to the AI. So
100%.
you don't need to drag it into, for example, ChatGPT and ask what's
No, because you
yeah.
have the tool and you have
Yeah.
the AI already, and again, you communicate that through WhatsApp, which is
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
pretty cool from
Exactly.
that perspective.
So development wise, how did
Yes.
that practically happen? Not going too much into detail,
Yeah.
but just what was the flow of developing this practically?
Yeah. So one important thing for pretty much all of the organizations that are dealing in B2B is you had to have a very stable and sort of enterprise ready infrastructure, because again, we have to think that we're dealing with data, right? And data is becoming more and more valuable. So
Yeah.
actually, when we were sort of going and showing this feature, one of the first questions were, where is my data going? So
Yeah.
you need to have a proper answer to that. So without getting into details, we used AWS, which is a very enterprise friendly and focused solution of storing the data. So that gives you more trust of what is happening. And the way we developed it as well is very mindful of the cost perspective, because this type of tool is event driven, trigger driven.
Yeah.
I ask a question, it answers it, or I do something with it. So in a way, we use this technology, serverless, which is pay for only what you use.
Yeah.
So you're not paying for servers running all the time, and you only pay for the amount of time, which is usually a few seconds to a maximum a minute of producing this. Right now, like, I record the transcript, I have to make the transcript work, then you pay only for that part. So we
Nice.
are very modular from that perspective, because within a new startup idea, things change often.
Yeah.
And when you already have some customers that have trusted you, especially in the beginning, you don't want to disrupt that processes. And so in a way, we had that serverless infrastructure, we had the modularity to swap things, and we were really playing around with what model to use from a perspective, not too much of which company, but the how smart the model should be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously that is very much tied to the cost, because we're
Yeah.
processing voice, we're processing images that are costly things. So we managed to get it with a very sort of balanced model, not using the most high sort of clever
Yeah.
model in
Just
a way,
enough to do
enough
the
to do
job.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly, enough to do the job. And then the integration with WhatsApp. So
Yeah.
because obviously you have to go through actually more administration than actually integrations, but integrating with WhatsApp, making sure that from a privacy perspective, these messages are also with the
Yeah.
proper policies and integrations, etc. So the whole solution is just these tools that I just mentioned, and then WhatsApp, and they're
Yeah.
both communicating, and an API layer towards the systems where we're recording the data for them to later use.
All right. So, sounds really interesting and very very smartly built. Now reflecting back to this process, what are the bottlenecks, the takeaways that you would get for next time when you need to create a similar product?
So I would say one of the things, funny enough, was actually the validation on WhatsApp. That was quite a pain to go through of the process, just of all the requirements. So in a way, the amount of time we spent on building the validations and
Yeah.
the integrations, and also WhatsApp is not really made for all of these things, for some of these things. So we had to do a lot of sort of building additional tools in order to process that information.
Yeah.
I would have used WhatsApp only if it was more for messaging, but if you start adding a lot of voice and etc., it becomes a bit more
Mm.
complicated that you need to do. However, you have to, in this case, think about the user and what they have access to. So in that case was still a good, despite the extra time that we had to go through, because they were not going to install a new tool and they didn't have access to an other type of
Yeah.
a device. And the other thing that I'll focus on is from a perspective of the access to the data that you have. Because yes, we were generating data, but we also had to use a lot of existing data to make the matching, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously they in that case they have a tool where they do the orders, and that we had to match with that. And the integrations within software, again, people were very protective,
Mm.
not from the companies who wanted to use the tool, but from the companies who are holding the software.
Yeah.
Which is, that's something that you have to get ahead of time. So one thing that we are continuing to expand more and more is that you have to start with data first. Like, what data do I have access to, and do I have access to it? And then from that perspective, start building of what you can build. Actually, I will emphasize that data part very strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just think about, because AI, and if you're building AI tools, they're all driven by the data perspective. So think about the data access. Where is that data coming from? What data are you generating? And then the other advice will be really start shifting more to this specification driven development. Write and spend time on writing specifications as detailed as possible.
All right. Well, thanks for this
Thank you.
talk. We will be surely looking forward to the launch of the product.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to seeing what the end result is. Well, see you next time.
Yes. Thank you.